Good afternoon and welcome to this market analysis update on the government's digitalisation challenge with me, Anthony Davis. I am a commercial manager at Bloom Procurement Services and I've been with the company now for nearly 2.5 years. So when we say digitalisation, what do we actually mean? So the 2 or 3 things I think we should concentrate on when we're talking about digitalisation are data-driven service provision, automation and artificial intelligence, and information exchange. So data-driven service provision and automation are kind of quite linked together. They're about using data to add capacity and capability in an agile way to provide customer service provision. So for example, open data being a key one there. And the Organisation for Cooperation and Development, OECD, published a working paper on this back in 2019. That's really interesting when you look at things such as benefit provision and things like flood defences, etc. So it's about using responding to data, using data to respond to risks, and responding to that data with interventions. And those interventions could be policy interventions, or there could be operational interventions. Automation is kind of the next level of that. It's almost taking that data and using that data before any risk occurs to predict demand and to predict customer behaviour, and then act upon those customer behaviours in a manner that in a predictable manner. So it's about things like looking at the demand curve and predicting what might happen, but also then taking it the next further step and using that intelligence to put capability and capacity in the right place at the right time. Another thing about digitalisation is about information exchange. So with the advent of cloud computing, etc., we've now got the ability, and the government has the ability to exchange that data with both parties internally and externally within the public sector. And that can create some interesting collaborative working arrangements to extend and improve upon service offerings that weren't available before. So there's a few things about the government's take on digitalisation at the moment, and that is, I've called it the art of the possible versus kind of legacy infrastructure. So what has happened very recently is that obviously COVID-19 over the past 15 months has necessitated an always-on remote working culture, but also one that needs to exist alongside traditional working and business trappings. And by that, I mean, there's been a slight cultural shift towards things such as working from home, conducting things in an arm's length manner, but still being able to get the main business as usual work done. The way the country has responded to this has given the government renewed confidence to accelerate its evolution of its infrastructure estate, which needs some significant changes. And one of the things I want to discuss today is that actually one of the biggest challenges I feel the government has is that there's no central budget for this digitalisation. So the UK government budget for 2021 was £928 billion. The budget for 21-22 is £1,053 billion. And a recent Cabinet Office report has shown that just on 6 major government departments, there's been £6 billion a year spent on their IT estate. So that gives you some kind of feel for scale on where for those IT estates alone, how much they cost, but also compared in comparison to the government's main drivers and the government's main budgetary areas, it's almost a drop in the ocean, a small drop in the ocean compared to the rest of the government estate, and that is a big problem, I feel. And it's what caused the UK government approach to digitalisation to be so fragmented. And the reason for this is that IT is seen by the government as an enabler rather than a primary service provider. And if the government really wants to be serious about digitalisation, I feel there might need to be a step change in what we do here. And IT might be seen more and more as an actual department in its own right, as an actual concept in its own right, rather than that enabler, especially if we want to receive the goods that we spoke about earlier, all that information exchange, that automation, and the things that come with that, and the data-driven environments that come with that. Then I feel that IT needs to be more central to government's approach. On the flip side of that, though, there is different legislative requirements for each ministerial department. So it becomes, when you dig a little bit deeper, it becomes understandable why there isn't a central IT approach in a way, because things such as GDPR for patient records, etc., is a very different scale of challenge in both policy and legislature and security compared to something like the MOD estate, which obviously has the national security of the country at heart. So they're two very different things, and to look at them centrally in one way and to say, well, a one size fits all, then it's not going to work at all. There's also security considerations. So by having a more fragmented IT estate and having each ministerial department purchase its own IT and have its own digitalization approach to the services that they do, then there's no single point of failure in a way, because it's all embedded in different services into kind of different service providers. And finally, on this slide, there's mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there's no one-size-fits-all solution, in that the government still has to be quite careful with the way it approaches the market. It can't use its leverage position almost to disrupt the market, because that's against procurement rules, procurement legislation. But also on the flip side of that, it's arguable that there wouldn't be any particular one supplier or any particular one player that would be able to provide the capacity and capability at the given time for the government to take a digitalisation journey as a one-stop shop, as a one-box, as a turnkey solution. So when we talk about digitalisation, we talk about that data, etc. Well, what does that mean? What does it actually? What's the outputs from that? And what we're seeing in across government, especially some local government clients of mine at the moment, we're seeing what I like to call the Digitalisation Continuum, which is software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. So infrastructure as a service is kind of the top level, moving down to platform as a service, and then finally software as a service. They're almost like a pyramid, with infrastructure as a service being that bottom layer, and then incrementally different service provisions are happening with each of the following two. So platform as a service and software as a service, providing a continuation of an upskill of the services that are provided. To put that into context a little bit, what we can see here is traditionally, at the moment, organisations just starting that digitalisation journey might do everything in-house on their own. So that's everything from applications, data, runtime, middleware, operating systems, virtualisation, the servers, the storage, and the networking, all being delivered by that department in its own right. And what we're seeing now is a move towards software as a service being the ultimate kind of end goal, infrastructure as a service and platform as a service being incrementally different steps on that journey. So for example, infrastructure as a service, we start to move things such as the applications, the data, the runtime and the middleware keeping in-house, and instead moving the virtualization, the servers, the storage and the networking to a service provider. Platform as a service, the next logical step is to move runtime, middleware, the operating system, server, storage, networking, etc., to an external supplier in a cloud computing manner. And then finally, the next logical incremental step is to actually move everything across to a cloud-based solution. So your applications and your data are all held in things such as Microsoft Azure or cloud computing based systems, Google Data Studios, etc. And that being moved to a software solution, so everything becomes managed as a service, and what the customer is actually paying for is that service provision of all of the above. Microsoft have actually, from a consumer point of view, Microsoft have moved to this kind of model with their Office 365 cloud-based delivery of Office software. They've moved completely to software as a service, where everything is realised in the cloud. Bloom's approach to how we manage our procurements is that we do this in a manner that we can help you along this digitalisation journey by helping you and a team of specialists working with you to develop a fully compliant outcome-based spec for any of that digitalisation. So what we do is, as a complementary service, we could share our learnings and best practice with you from some of the 7,000 projects we've delivered to date. IT is our second biggest category here at Bloom, so we have a rich knowledge database of projects where what we've done in the digitalisation area previously. From our dynamic marketplace, we can help you to identify the correct suppliers, be that sort of large corporations or some of the SMEs that work in this marketplace, and also draw upon our own internal knowledge to shortlist those appropriate suppliers for you, so you get the right competition for you, so we get the right numbers, but also helping with that pre-market engagement a little bit as well there. Coming through Bloom, you outsource the complete service provision in terms of the procurement activity itself. So we undertake mini competition for you based on your specification that we've helped you to help work with you on. And then we come to the end where we do the contract award for you. So you contract through us, you contract through Bloom, and we produce a statement of work that matches those outcomes and the value that you need to receive from it in terms of added services, added value. And finally, we have a team of commercial managers such as myself that work with yourselves and the suppliers to make sure that all invoices are submitted in a timely manner and the outcomes that you actually need, you receive. So we work very much on that outcome-based provision and help you achieve the milestones, contractual milestones that you need on this digitalisation journey. We have a webinar on the Thursday, the 16th of September. We're assembling a panel of public sector experts to discuss the new normal workplace, which I alluded to earlier on in this presentation, with the art of the possible with COVID, etc. And looking specifically on our technological transformation journeys for our local authorities since COVID-19, and how authorities are future-proofing their IT infrastructure estates to embrace this new normal. If you're interested in attending this, please contact Matthew Garrett. That's matthew.garrett@bloom.services if you wish to receive an invite to this event. And finally, thank you very much. I hope you've got something from this. Cheers. Bye-bye.